What's up, everybody, and welcome to this spoiler conversation about Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. And I definitely do want to stress spoilers up front. We will be getting heavily into details of the movie. I am one of your hosts here, Franklin F.M. McKinnis, and as always, I have my co-host here with me, Collecting Plastic.
Hey, what up, everyone?
So we're going to kind of kick things off with our overall impressions. But one thing I do want to address before we get into this is I've been looking at reviews and reactions to the movie, and I think unfortunately I'm starting to see a lot of people that are kind of critiquing the critics more so than critiquing the movie. There are some people that are upset with the critics that have not even watched the movie yet. So I'm just going to say, please make sure that you actually watch the movie before you judge it. And do keep your thoughts about the movie. I don't think it's necessary to get personal in this. It's not that serious. When it comes down to it, this is just entertainment. It's about fun in the long run. So yeah, let's basically just keep that in mind as we move forward here. So I'm gonna kick it to you though, collecting plastic. Like, just out of the theater reaction, like, what was your overall feel for the movie?
So, I'm usually pretty easy on Marvel movies because at the end of the day, they're comic book movies and everything. But I did find this one a little disappointing. Um, Honestly, at the end of the day, I think I would call this one like a 6 out of 10 for me, which is really low for Marvel movies for me because I usually give them eights, nines, just because they're about kind of being fun. But I did have a lot of issues with this one.
For me, and I know this is gonna sound harsh, but I basically landed at a 4, and the reasoning why is because I mean, obviously, 5 is considered average. I feel like it's a below average movie, not just a below average Marvel movie, just a below average movie in general. And I was really thinking this as the movie was going into the third act, and I just realized like I'm not connecting emotionally at all. It's a very hollow feeling experience to me. And I feel like, at least the family dynamics should have worked, but it just didn't. Like, it felt very hollow, and I started to see a lot of tropes being used, a lot of Marvel tropes in particular being used. So, like, yeah, that's the way I would describe it overall. It's just sort of a hollow feeling experience.
Yeah, I think that's why I went with like a 6 out of 10 because I still I wasn't bored watching it. I just rolled my eyes a lot, but I think the visuals and the fact that I like Ant-Man himself and I liked Kang, it was enough for me to like enjoy watching it. I didn't regret watching it or spending the money to watch it. It just did. I didn't leave the theater going, "Oh man, I can't wait to watch that again." You know?
Well, my thing is, yeah, I agree. I don't regret watching it because I mean, curiosity. I feel like I always got to see what's going on with the MCU. But moving forward, though, um, when we look forward deeper into Phase Five, I think we could look back and see that this movie is not even a necessary movie because in the end, they took no real risk. They barely set up anything. I feel like Kang is pretty much set up in a similar way as he's already been set up. Like, I don't feel like there's anything that really happened in this movie that was 100% necessary.
Well, yeah, that's because the first post-credit scene completely negates everything that happened. They built up Kang, and Jonathan Majors did a good job. Like, with Marvel movies, it really sets apart like the really, really good actors and the ones that aren't. I thought Michelle Pfeiffer, even though some of her writing wasn't great, was acting very well in it, and so was Jonathan Majors. And Paul Rudd, to an extent, he was doing his Paul Rudd thing, but I think those two took it a little bit more seriously than everybody else. That's why when they showed an infinite number of frankly goofy Kangs, like when he came out with that Party City Pharaoh look on, I mean, I wanted to start busting like laughing. I was like, is that meant to be funny? Like that you took all the menacing energy from the movie Kang out of it when you showed all these goofy variants of Kang, and it just eliminates the threat. It almost seems like okay, each one of these Kangs, I guess, can be a villain in any movie or show, and then they're gonna kill him off at the end. But oh, here comes another one.
Yeah, and
I
that's
thought
not
that was really
compelling.
lame.
Yeah, that's not compelling. It's to me the best way to kind of compare that to something else is it's like with the agents in the Matrix. In the first Matrix, when an agent showed up on screen, they set them up so well. It was like a horror movie. Like, you really feared for the main characters. In the second movie, you have dozens of Agent Smith because he's replicating himself, and it's not the same anymore. And it's obviously copy and paste. You have a whole bunch of Agent Smiths that are obviously CG, so it's just not the same anymore. The threat is gone, and that's how I feel too about that. This stadium full of Kangs, and also each Kang is supposed to be highly intelligent. Why are they acting like some frat guys at a party, like, and just yelling and looking like morons? It really bugged me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also,
Some of them seem mentally deficient. And
yeah.
okay, so going back to the to what you said about Agent Smith in the Matrix, right?
Mm,
You know what's gonna be so dumb if they do in this one was there was a part where Kang is talking about like, oh, are you the Avenger with the hammer? Like he's killed the Avengers so many, like this particular version of Kang in the movie has killed the Avengers so many times that he gets them mixed together. Like he's squashing ants. Like literally like he's squashing ants. That's how he talks about the Avengers and how many times he's defeated them.
mm.
So this Kang in the movie is built up like an Agent Smith, going like, oh man, like in the first Matrix, you saw Agent Smith, and you're telling the main characters, dude, run. This guy's invincible. He's unstoppable. And so then when the later Agent Smiths come along, or the later Kangs come along in future movies that are supposed to maybe be improved versions of the first threat because they saw how he was defeated, and obviously they were able to send him down and exile him in the quantum realm. So it lets me know that these Kangs are even more powerful than the Kang we saw in the movie, but that's not going to be the case. They're going to bring in new Kangs, and they're going to probably be defeated. They're probably going to have a situation where there's going to be like 4 or 5 Kangs against one or two of the Avengers, and they're just going to defeat them. You just know that's going to happen, or I mean, I hope that doesn't happen, but I feel like that's where we're leading to, and it's super dumb to me.
To me, it would have been, and I know what it is in the comics. I know that, what they did with that mid-credit scene. I mean, they did not film it well. It wasn't acted well either. I think Jonathan Majors had better acting than the rest of the movie. But to me, you don't have to do what's exactly in the comics. I feel like it would have been so much scarier if this Kang that we saw in Quantumania actually was able to make it out. And the other Kangs, maybe they don't know that he's actually made it out, and he shows up and maybe just wrecks them. Something like that would be a lot scarier than getting rid of him and leaving us with all these other Kangs that we don't even know yet, don't really care about. Like, it just didn't work for me. And then the fact also that nobody, like, I mean, there's basically 5 lead characters in this movie, with the Ant family, I guess you could say. All of them survive. Like, that to me is like no real stakes then.
Yeah, that was speaking of the Ant family. Michelle Pfeiffer, I liked. I liked her because I like Michelle Pfeiffer. But the way she kept like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Like, it's like, okay, I mean, you're already down there. You're already in the quantum realm. Don't you think this information would be helpful? Like, maybe we should let the people know what the threat is. That's
Yeah,
her
and they
family and they're superheroes. Maybe so they can start thinking about, okay, maybe we can come up with a plan.
Yeah, and what's a shame is, I mean, just a couple minutes into the movie, and they're literally having that scene back to back with her refusing to speak. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, this is bad script writing. It
It's
really is. Like,
annoying. And then it would cut to Evangeline Lilly, and she was underwritten as well. And it just reminded me of her character in Lost, where she would have information and she just wouldn't say it. And I'm like, dude, this is like it's this is annoying me so much the way they wrote these characters. It's
yeah,
really annoying.
it's like the most interesting thing they could do with Wasp is give her a bad haircut. Like, other than that, like,
Ah,
not.
she looked cute.
But to me, and I understand that even is a comic reference. I guess they were trying to go for. It didn't quite work for me personally. Some people may like it, but the thing is, I mean, they really did not add depth to her character. And I even noticed in this movie, it was way more noticeable than the other movies. I was like, when she and Ant-Man finally hug at the end, and I was like, well, they barely interacted in this movie, and the
Yeah.
chemistry is not there just because they've not really interacted enough. So that kind of bugged me. And a big issue at the end too. I mean, we could talk about some of the logical issues in this movie. Is they were not very clear on the rules about how to get in and out of the quantum realm, because at the end when his daughter suddenly just puts a portal right behind them, I was like, wait a minute, I thought they were about to be trapped or something. And
Okay,
then all of
so
a sudden she can just drop a portal right behind them.
as I was watching this, right, in the theater, and you know me, I don't like to really read about movies that I'm gonna watch or watch the trailer. I watched the trailer one time, don't watch the follow-up ones because I don't want anything to be spoiled, right? So as I was watching this, I kept thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, so when is Rick Sanchez gonna show up? And then after finishing watching the movie and I started reading about it, I saw that some of the writers were the same writers from Rick and Morty. They actually got the writers from Rick and Morty to write this. And it immediately made so much sense to me because in Rick and Morty, all the physics, quantum realm stuff, multiverse stuff in Rick and Morty, they don't really they can put out the concepts, but they don't have to explain it. They just explain it like as a joke, right? They go, "Oh, Rick Sanchez, oh, just go with it, Morty," or whatever, right? Like, but you can't do that in a movie. And I think that's why we don't really get any real explanations. Not that you need an explanation, but they have to at least make it make sense within the universe, and they don't really do that. And it made a lot of sense to me when I saw that it was the Rick and Morty writers going like, well, yeah, it's a lot different in comedy, which I guess this can be technically a comedy, but it's still a movie. Um, and I feel that's why they just kind of throw portals up and don't
Yeah, and
really kind of have any rules.
yeah, we also get characters that could literally be out of a Rick and Morty episode. We get alien characters that I didn't care too much about. They were very jokey, like the goopy guy with that wanted holes or whatever, that the mind
Yeah,
reading
that
guy.
one.
The mind
And
reading,
then
and he's a solid actor. I thought he was one of the better characters, but still not hundred
yeah, I
percent
liked him.
necessary. Yeah,
And
and
okay, so you had those jokey characters, right? Straight out of Rick and Morty. And then you also had the ultra serious, like
mhm.
warrior princess.
And that's the
That
one I
was
was
played
about to
by
point
Kelly
out.
O'Brien. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like and I really her character bugged me because yeah, she's so serious and then at the same time also, yeah, she felt like a character from Rick and Morty. Like literally they had an episode where they were in a reality that was sort of like Mad Max and that's what she felt like some sort of rip off Mad Max character. It just didn't
So
work for me.
I actually liked her character because they are in a really serious, scary situation. That's one of the things I didn't like about the Pym family was Michael Douglas and Catherine Newton, who played Cassie, and to an extent also Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd. Actually, they were all acting like they
There's no
were
real threat.
no, like they were like, okay, we're at an amusement park that's over
Mm,
capacity and we gotta wait in line for too long. Her, her, her.
mm.
Like that. That's the seriousness of the situation that we're in, and that really bugged me. Plus, I think Michael Douglas was the worst part of the movie, and it's not entirely his fault. Like he doesn't have. I mean, the writing wasn't good, but and I know this movie, there's a lot of BS in it, right? And like all Marvel movies are all fantastical, it's nonsense. But something that really takes me out of the movie is when they have a character like or an actor like Michael Douglas. I don't know how old he is. He looks like he's 90 years old, and you throw him like 40 yards and he lands and he's fine. I'm like, bro, every bone in his body would have been shattered. Like it just why is this old man indestructible? Why is Michelle Pfeiffer indestructible? I didn't realize that Ant-Man and the Wasp and then the daughter, I forget what the daughter's superhero name is. I didn't realize that their suits and helmets were Iron Man suits because that's the way they act. Like they're indestructible. It's nonsense.
Yeah, and the Iron Man style tech is way overused in the MCU. We talked about that with Wakanda Forever. It's just overdone. It doesn't feel special anymore.
And they also had way too many of I forget what they're called, those little discs that can make something big or small.
Yeah, I kept wondering too, like where did these come from? You just keep getting more and more and more, and then the rules even change with those. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Like it's just is weird. And
I think for something so overpowered like that, it should be like say, say you're watching like a horror movie and the person has a gun with two bullets in it. So they have to write around that, and it makes it for more interesting writing. Going, okay, when are they going to save the bullets? When are they going to use them? But with these things, it's like they have infinite ammo. It's just, and their suits. It doesn't even seem like their suits even have anywhere to store anything, and they just have so many of those. And there's even one point where Hank Pym, Michael Douglas's character, uses one of those, which is clever to make the animal in the bar kind of blow up, and that was kind of cool. I mean, inflate up. But the way he throws it and lands it in the glass, like those carnival games where you're throwing a ping pong ball in a glass. I'm like, dude, that is so silly to me. Like, maybe he could have slipped it in before running away. They could have written that better than just, oh, have him throw it from 10 yards away and have it perfectly land in a glass. That is so ridiculous.
And they also cut too. They didn't really show. I thought they were going to show Bill Murray's character straight up be eaten, but they kind of cut from it. It's almost like they wanted to leave the possibility of bringing him back. And his cameo was okay, but it kind of felt like Bill Murray as Bill Murray, basically.
Yeah, I thought some of the lines were funny, like when he's alluding to having slept with Janet Van Dyne. I thought that was kind of funny, um, but not so funny, right? I did think that was kind of funny, but doesn't it seem like it was written that Bill Murray, and I'm sure they probably even shot it like he was gonna come back at the very end once Kang was kind of defeated, right? To be like, oh, like it would have been kind of funny. Okay, no, now you're not so scared of him. Now you're on our side, right? Now that he's defeated, it seems like it was kind of written that way, and they just kind of cut it out for time, maybe.
Yeah, to me, it's another example of this movie where things were just stretched out, and a lot of unnecessary things happen. And I mean, Marvel needs to stop thinking that the best way to handle a third act is to throw as much CG on the screen as possible, because to me, that's part of the reason why this felt hollow. We got a bunch of alien characters I don't care about fighting a bunch of, faceless henchmen. It did nothing for me really towards the end.
And they were literally faceless henchmen.
And then they bring in the giant ants, and it's like this is the way you take out Kang, somebody that we're supposed to fear so much. And
Somebody
it,
that
it
had taken out the Avengers countless times.
and it totally undercut too. Like when he actually came down and started just wrecking shop, like that was good. That was intimidating. But then to bring in the ants, it just totally undercut that.
Yeah. So surprisingly, one of the things I kind of liked the most about it was Modoc. I was expecting to kind of really hate that character, but when he actually first shows up and the way they kind of built him up with Bill Murray, when he kind of just he delivers the what is it mechanized organism designed only for killing. When he kind of says it and it goes over everybody's head, like they're like, well, what is he talking about? I thought that was a good way to kind of introduce him there. And then when he finally shows up, he actually did seem like a real menace. The way they kind of killed him off at the end, maybe that was kind of dumb. And that's another way where like, okay, dude, there's a dude dying that just helped you save everybody. Yeah, he's a dick, like they say in the movie, but the way they're all just kind of joking around as this dude's dying just seems it's I
It
know it's
was
supposed to be comedic, but it's awkward. It's weird.
Yeah,
It's
it
not
was a
realistic.
disservice. It was a disservice to him because I agree. I think he was set up well. I don't think the effect worked 100%, like especially around his mouth. It was very distracting. It just looked like kind of bad Photoshop. But I was
Yeah,
okay with them.
the effect without the mask was dumb.
Yeah, I was okay with them though bringing back Darren Cross. I think that was an interesting twist on Modoc, and I think most of his scenes actually did work. Like until like you said at the end where they rushed his redemption basically and made it too jokey. But other than that, he actually works better than some of the other characters in this movie.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. And but yeah, like to me, the CGI didn't bother me too much. I even liked when there was, when he goes, I forget what they call it, like super subatomic or whatever, and there's tons of Iron Mans everywhere, or tons of Ant Mans everywhere. I like that. I mean, it's Ant Man. It goes with the motif. It makes sense. But the inclusion of the Dunkin' or the inclusion of the what's the ice cream shop, Baskin Robbins, Ant Man in there, I was like, dude, it's unnecessary. It's not funny. And why is there only one? Why isn't there like a plainclothes Ant-Man or whatever? You know what I mean? Just the fact that there was
But
just the
to me,
one.
that whole sequence is a great example of something that's very Rick and Morty because
Yeah.
ultimately, this whole probability storm where you see multiple of Ant-Man, multiple of the Wasp, even when she comes along, and none of it matters in the long run because
Yeah.
it doesn't work. All these different Ant-Man are trying to lift him up. He shoots one disc, it burns out for whatever reason. It doesn't work. So when I saw that it didn't work, and then all of a sudden all the the different versions of them disappear, I was like, well, what was the point in that? Just to throw millions of dollars on the screen because that's all it was. It didn't really drive the plot forward.
And obviously all those different probability Ant-Man and Wasps don't consider themselves an actual character because they're all sacrificing themselves for our main character. It's silly writing, which I think works in a half-hour comedy cartoon show, but not in an actual movie.
And this is kind of the issue with the multiverse in general. And I still feel like there's confusion in Marvel. Or multiverses, are they exactly the same thing as alternate timelines or not? I feel like Marvel needs to be more clear about that. But this is the issue with having these, is that once you know that there are like an infinite number of a character, then how do you really emotionally invest in them? Because one of the best things that I think Kang says in the movie is at one point Janet says to him, like, you have killed trillions, and he says something like, he's like, I wish that matter, or that it doesn't really matter. And I think that's what he's getting at. He's like, there's just, it's infinite. So then how do you really invest in these characters so much?
I guess by making the alternate versions really goofy, right? And so we stay with our own timeline. Honestly, I know a lot of people liked Endgame, and I know a lot of people like Multiverse because we get to see Spider-Mans from different movies and all that stuff, right? But I really did not like when the MCU introduced time travel and multiverses for that very reason. Like, okay, you just took the stakes out of everything. Nothing matters now because they can just replace any character with a multiverse version, or they can just go back in time. It would have been better if they would have just left multiverse stuff to a character like Doctor Strange, who's like a mystic character that he can do that kind of stuff, but nobody else really believes him, maybe something like that. And then time travel should have just been left to one or two times with the time stone, and then it somehow gets destroyed, and that's it, right? Like having Iron
Yeah.
Man discover time travel in a couple of days is that was beyond silly to me. That's why I don't think Endgame is as good as it is. I mean, it's a good movie, but there's stuff like that that's hard for me to get over.
And
It's
it
just
still
too
kills
silly.
me too. Yeah, it still kills me too that the way that Ant-Man got out of the quantum realm is by a rat accidentally hitting a button. It's like that's the big initiator for Endgame, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of silly. Which I guess I guess they have a hard task kind of melding all these characters together because Ant Man is a more comedic character, right? But I don't know. I don't know. I think the comedy really kind of clashed with the stakes in this new movie.
Yeah, and then the Loki scene at the very end, and Loki's a great example of why the multiverse to me has like ruined the stakes, and the alternate timelines has ruined the stakes, is because we have this Loki is not our original Loki,
Yeah.
and it really still bothers me that they tried to make him like our original Loki by essentially having him just watch some home movies and catch up and get emotionally where the other Loki was. That still bugs me, and I feel like they can just now, it doesn't matter if a character dies. They can just replace them basically and have some quick fix to basically make them like the one we're familiar with now.
Well, they pull up that spreadsheet and they go, okay, which is the most profitable characters? Everybody likes Loki. Let's bring him back. That's what it feels like, right? It's just like a way for them to be able to bring back any character that becomes very popular so they can make more money, which is fine, I guess.
So Iron
Um,
Man can come back. Even
yeah.
Captain America could possibly come back. Steve Rogers, Captain America, could come back. It's just, it doesn't, nothing really matters now. Even if there are deaths, it doesn't matter. But I still feel like that's where they copped out in Quantumania. I think it would have been so impactful if, and I really do like Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I want to be very clear about that. I really
Yeah,
do
me
like him
too.
as the character. But if he had died, I think that would have made a big impact, and definitely sent a big warning to the other Avengers, because right now it's like, who even is the Avengers at this point? What, like, who's really on the roster? So this could have helped them, maybe galvanize a new version of the team, for them to realize they need to be on alert that something's going on here.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, because I like Paul Rudd, I like Ant-Man, I like the Pims overall, even though, I did criticize them a lot. The daughter, she's all right. A little bit annoying in some parts, but I like them overall. Kang, I liked overall. Modoc surprised me. Even Bill Murray was fine. That's why I still give it a 6 out of 10, even though I'm nitpicking it a lot here. I still was entertained, so I give it a 6 out of 10. But yeah, it's just there's
Well,
a lot of things that disappoint me because I think it could have been a lot better.
one thing I don't want to forget to mention though, with Cassie, I felt a little cheated because the trailer essentially lied to us. So in the trailer, they give a quick glimpse of Cassie in jail, and they flash to her as a child, and they have Kang telling Ant-Man, "I can give you the one thing that you really want, time," which to me implies that his daughter has kind of gone off the rails. She's on a bad route or whatever, and Kang is basically implying that he can take it back to when she was young, so he can be with her and really raise her and everything. That's not what happens in the movie. In the movie is basically do what I want or I'm gonna kill your daughter. So the trailer definitely lied to us in that way, and I felt like it would have been more interesting if his daughter really was making some serious mistakes. And I mean, they have her being arrested, but yeah, she's being arrested for trying to do something positive. So it's like that just shows how sometimes Marvel just can be kind of gutless. They don't take enough risk sometimes.
Yeah, and her whole getting arrested for doing something positive, it just seems like such a 90s like plot or theme or contrivance, right? It's just like I'm like, come on, man. Like there's better ways of building up a character, making you like a character than doing that old trope once again. Um and yeah, like a lot of the comedy, except for there was a couple of jokes that did make me laugh, like when he goes to the coffee shop at the end and the guy finally realizes, oh, it's not Spider-Man, this is Ant-Man, and he charges him $12 for the coffee. That did make me laugh. Like I will give it that. That was a funny
About
joke.
the only humor that was, and it still didn't make me laugh out loud, but I did kind of like the whole aspect of him writing the book, and I thought the excerpt that he read from the book was actually really well written.
That
You know,
was well written. Like, I was like, dude, why
yeah,
did they give
so
him crap for that? It's actually pretty good.
I thought that was one of the stronger aspects of it, in showing that even though he had let things go into his head a little bit, he's still not he's still humble to an extent as well. So, like I said, Paul Rudd still worked overall as the character, but I don't know, like moving forward now, since they have left him living and they left all these characters living, are they really going to make good use of them in the future? I don't know. It's just I don't have the best feelings about where we're headed with Kang at this point. I think it's going to take a lot to really convince me that he's going to work as a major villain, as a Thanos level villain. Because like right now, like Thanos early on to me had some good lines that really stick with you. Like even him as simply saying, I am inevitable. Like that's the type of thing I really want from Kang, something that really sticks with you like that. And we'll see what happens moving forward. But I just don't have the best feelings about it right now, though.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first movie with him really in it as Kang. Uh, to me, doesn't have to be a Thanos level villain, right? I don't think it needs to be that big every time, right? Especially because we don't even have the same Avengers anymore, right? And who knows? They might surprise us with what they do. They might have something planned out that's really good. We'll have to see about that, I suppose.
We'll see what they'll do moving forward, but hopefully less Rick and Morty in the future.
I know. All right, man. Well, that's all I got to say about it. Really, 6 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I still stand at a 4. I don't know, maybe a rewatch will get me at least to a 5. We'll see. But we definitely look forward to reading your comments and your thoughts about the movie. And like I said, hopefully you've actually seen the movie. Please make sure you've checked it out before you judge it. And remember, let's keep the focus on the movie, not judging each other. That really gets us nowhere. Let's keep it about the entertainment. But yeah, thank you all so much for taking the time to check this out. And of course, we got plenty more content coming up on our channels. We'll talk to you all again real soon.
Peace.